Good afternoon all. My name is Emma Marnie. I'm the CEO of Women's Health and Wellbeing Barwon South West. We're continuing our Women's Voices Let's Connect project, putting a call out to women in our region about what it's like moving through the COVID-19 pandemic and what you need. One of the strong responses we have received is the question about money, about how to make your way through this time, how to live with the insecurity about money. And so today we're incredibly proud to welcome Therese Edwards. So Therese is the Chief Executive Officer for the National Council of Single Mothers and Their Children. Therese has represented the plight of single mothers for many years. Her connection and knowledge is truly authentic, and it actually has advocated for and led focus on and change around women's, and particularly single mothers' experience of economic insecurity. So please join me in welcoming Therese today. She's going to introduce herself and speak a bit about the National Council of Single Mothers and Their Children. Thank you, Therese.
Hi, Emma. Such a warm welcome and hello to everyone. I hope you're staying safe through these crazy times. So the National Council of Single Mothers and Their Children, we have a few roles. One of them is to provide advice, support and connect women to services. Mostly we speak to women who are affected by poverty, hardship, isolation and or domestic violence, and sadly all of them can coexist in the one family. We provide a lot of information and try and guide women through child support, which is such a difficult legislation to understand, and it gets a bit tricky. We also have a strong focus on the national policies that include income support, and that is one of the reasons why I've been asked to join this webinar today. So if you need to contact NCSNC, we have a 1-800 email, we have a 1-800 number and email, all found on our website. But the most common way that has happened is through our Facebook. So women can engage on the information that we share or send a private message, and I monitor all of them, and forgive me if some of the responses are quicker than others because I try and prioritize depending upon the circumstances, but we will certainly get to it. So that's a little bit about us.
Beautiful. Thank you very much, Therese. Can I ask you a bit of a probing question? Can you speak briefly about what leads to this lack of income security and lack of financial security for women particularly?
Yeah, so we've, over the years, I think it's sort of, over the years, our welfare system has just, the gaps in it have gotten bigger and bigger and bigger. And it's been through both sides of government. There were some big, horrible sticks that happened in 2006, and then they were added to on 2013. So in single motherland, you know, women that are doing just a fantastic job, and probably one of the most important ones. But in Australia, we just don't seem to value women's labour. We don't value the parenting. We don't value unpaid care. It's just taken as a given. So there's a bit of a block in trying to get people to understand it. And then our support system has let us down. And so now, in 2020, if you're a single mum, and if your youngest child celebrates their 8th birthday, and most of us know that's sort of in the middle of primary school, so really quite young little ones, they're no longer deemed as a single mother. You're deemed as unemployed, and you flick across to what is now known as job seeker. Up until March, it was known as New Start, and before that it was the unemployment benefit, the dole. So it is just incredible to think that that's what we say to single mums. And the dole is so inadequate. It's about 70% below the poverty line. It really hurts mums that are in part-time work, because you can only earn $50 a week, and then you lose a significant amount of money. So it's a real poverty trap, that dole. And there's been a lot of us that have been advocating for raising the rate, valuing care. And we have this picture in Australia, and it hurts my heart to know that we are one of the richest countries in the world, and 32% of kids living in a sole parent family live in poverty. And what that means is kids skipping meals, missing out on those important milestones, not having mates over for their birthday, giving up the family pet, not being able to fulfill all their talents and riches. So, so it was a really sharp divide before the pandemic became upon us, and then bang, you're talking to the group that were probably already struggling, that were in the least position to protect themselves and their children. And so we all know, we've heard, you need to wash your hands with hand sanitizer. That's not the typical part of people's budget. So all of those, and there was no longer the stocking up when something was on sale. You had to grab it when it was available, because if you didn't, you might miss out. And so it really showed, the pandemic really showed a financial gap, and it showed the gap around the digital. So as kids needed to go to homeschooling, there was an expectation that families had an up-to-date PC or an up-to-date notebook, or had a plan that had accessible Wi-Fi during the day. So the pandemic really showed what happened when you have this patchwork of inequality across Australia. And I do need to pay some credit to the government for moving quickly and putting some payments into place. And I'm sure we'll talk about that, but gee, it was needed. And the money for those families that were just hanging on is starting to flow. So that's a real positive in this.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you, Therese. The pandemic has actually kind of shone a light on the gaps in our community. And I would totally echo what you're saying, that I commend the hasty investment and financial support. It's desperately needed and it's welcomed. And I think it's also, there's been a lovely mindfulness in the people you meet on the street, in the communities you have, about those that need. And we're really ever more mindful of that our world is less equal, and there are many on the margins who are really struggling, and we need to bring them into the middle. One of the things I'd love, did you want to say something to that, Therese?
Look, so true. When it first broke and we were told, to stay inside, and different states have different rules, my mind immediately went to the women who are sleeping in their cars or sleeping on friends' couches. And so, just that basic first step was elusive for some.
Yes, seeking shelter. So that's a beautiful place to dive a little deeper, Therese. Can you share what's available, what payments, processes, what supports are available in the context of COVID-19 at such a critical time?
Sure. So I will divide it between a few categories, because there's some differences. So if you were already on a payment, and that could have been New Start, which is now Job Seeker, or even the sickness allowance, the youth allowance, and parenting payment single, as well as parenting payment partnered, or Austudy, there was an announcement of an additional $500 per fortnight. Now that is huge for those payments. For some, it was double, and so for all of it, for this moment, it's like, yes, I can get my script made up. I can actually buy that more expensive but nutritious food. So that is available. You didn't need to apply for that. That's automatic if you're already on those payments. And people will start to see that from the 27th of April. So that should start to flow. There was another payment, and that's a fortnightly one, and there's been a commitment to keep that in for 6 months. So we know we can lock that away. There is a bit of certainty around those budgetings. People can make some decisions. I know some mums are going to catch up on some school fees. I know another mum that's going to put some tyres on their car. You know, there's a real chance to do those practical things that most of us just take for granted. So I need to just go brilliant with that. There was also another payment which has already started to be paid, and I think in talking to DSS on Monday, I think mostly that has actually been paid, and that was that once-off $750. I think it goes by the name of the stimulus payment, and that had a broader application. That brought in pensioners, it brought in people who qualify for family tax benefit, but you could only get one payment. So it's quite feasible that people had two, they could have qualified twice. So for example, a mum could have got the payment through perhaps the parenting payment single and then the family tax benefit, but it is strictly one payment per household. And it's really interesting. Some data has just come out about how that has been spent, and I love the analysis. It said women are leading the charge in spending the money, and out of that $750, about close to half of it has already been spent. And no surprise, the biggest one was the groceries, then followed by some clothing, and then medication came into it. So there's some really good choices, some very practical demands that has been spent on. And again, there was nothing to do if you were already qualified for those payments. Now let's turn to the folk that perhaps have lost their jobs. And again, we know that that those jobs, you know, we know that women feature highly in those jobs. And so there was that process of applying to Centrelink. And I don't need to talk about how difficult that is or the delays. There has been a tweak, so I can pass on that from the 3rd of April. If you did not have what is known as a customer reference number, or in the business they call it a CRN, you could not apply online. You had to actually get one of them, and then you could go through the process and apply online. Now you can. So I ask anyone who's about to apply to take a deep breath, to have a cup of tea. If they can, if there's capacity to apply not during business hours, you seem to navigate the system a little bit better because not everyone's on the site. And I understand that the crashing through MyGov, so you've got to have pardon me, I'm sorry, you've got to have MyGov in place, and then that links to Centrelink. Now, if what I'm saying seems really confusing and you don't really know what you should be qualifying for, I just want to tell you of a couple of hints. First of all, Services Australia, their website is pretty clear, and it has some COVID-19 white headers up the top, and you can navigate through that. But if you get lost and you want to know before you apply, because I think information is so important, throw into Google Payment Finder, and that will take you through and you just put in your details, and that will, at the end, it will tell you what you can qualify for. So that's a really handy hint. If what I'm saying starts to blur, just jump on that. And Emma, I just want to share another hint. So um, there's always been in the system a crisis payment, and to qualify for a crisis payment, there were some really tough timeframes, like you had to apply within 7 days of your crisis. And a crisis did include domestic violence, but many women weren't aware of it, and many women didn't qualify because they didn't apply within that time frame. The eligibility for crisis payment has been expanded, so it also now covers people who perhaps aren't in that financial position to go into self-isolation or quarantining. So so apply for that. You know, you might not have what we were talking about before, that extra cash to stock up on the food, or the personal hygiene items, or even getting an extension on your Telstra plan so you can text and FaceTime people and teachers and those important networks to keep yourself sane. There is that extra money. So I really do ask people to make the most of what is available. You don't need a doctor's certificate. It's based on trust. And of course, that's what we have to do at the moment. We have to trust and care for each other.
Thank you so much, Therese. So my final question of yourself is a bit around, so one of our jobs, we're a regional health promotion organisation. We're trying to turn the evidence into action. We're wondering what's our job, and what's your message to our community and our partners around what's the way forward around women's economic security? What's our action? What do you suggest?
Sure. Well, first of all, kudos for you for doing this, because the first part is getting information out and raising awareness. So if I recap, we were in a pretty nasty place in terms of women's economic security before the pandemic. So the silver lining for me is that our safety net is probably functioning for most people as it was intended, which is to provide enough disposable resources for people to provide the basics, but then to be in a position, so if there is employment, if there's capacity in the family to engage in paid employment, that the step there is a small step, not that huge step. It is so hard to think about volunteering, about being in the community, about attending appointments, if you've scrimped so much that you're not filling your prescriptions, if you can't sleep because you wake up in that cold sweat in the middle of the night because you know you're one slippery slope away from losing your house, if you can't, and the pain mostly for single mums is when they can't quarantine their children from hardship. So, you know, their kids aren't bringing home the school notes, and they're not playing the sport, and they know that they're poor. They know they've missed out on so much. So what we need to do as a community is acknowledge what the government has done and then say, don't stop. Please don't stop. Don't pull the rug out. Like, we've got a couple of, we can learn from history. So we know around the global financial crisis that that women and young people recovered really slowly compared to other members in the community. So we know that women will need a softer place to land for a longer time. And that's just because they do the lion's share of care, and they are so used to putting others before them. So we just need to really come together and impress upon the government. It's going to take a while. And now that you've done this, and now that you see that it actually benefits the community, it benefits individuals, just keep it going, keep it going. So that's my key message.
Therese, that's so wonderful. I'm hearing that more and more. Like, there's such a great opportunity here to make our world more equal, to make our community more equal, to care for more.
Yeah.
That's a stunning place to close our conversation for today. I really sincerely thank you, Therese. It's been an absolute delight. I will just mention that on our website, so Women's Health and Wellbeing Barwon Southwest, under Let's Connect COVID-19, there's a hub for community members. We'll make sure that the information that Therese has provided is there. Don't forget those great tips. We're going to share this video far and wide, but please sing out if you've got more questions and certainly connect with folk like Therese. Thank you again, Therese.
Thanks so much. Take care. Bye.